Okay, you know what? If I see one more video or one more comment from folks who are like, AOC isn't working for us, she's too busy knitting, she's not getting down to work, she has time to sit and knit a sweater, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind.
No fucking way did I just see a video of AOC knitting and talking about shit, you know? Do you all remember what she was doing, like, during the pandemic? She was making cocktails. Sometimes she would cook on live. Now she's knitting to seem relatable. That makes me sick. But personally, I don't want any of my politicians, these people who are supposed to be saving us from fascism, to be picking up new fucking hobbies. I want my politicians to be rioting.
Are we being punked? I just saw AOC's latest post that she made about an hour ago. It's Monday morning or Monday afternoon. And she's knitting and telling us to turn off the TV and unplug. Don't stay abreast of everything. Just check in maybe once a day if you really want to know what's going on. And she's knitting. Look,
I get that the amount of internalized misogyny that gets directed at AOC is unfucking real. But these women, like, do y'all not understand? First of all, this is a long haul. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Second of all, we all have the right to enjoy good things in life. Having peace and beauty and joy is resistance. And in particular, that video, AOC was talking about how, turn off the TV. If it's overwhelming, if it causes you to freeze up and be paralyzed and not be able to take any action, then take a break from it. Take a break and walk away. Do something that is meaningful and relieves stress. Right? I have a whole video that I made, it's up on YouTube, about how knitting is a great stim. It's the stim of our grandmas. It is something that our foremothers did in order to deal with their need to move and fidget and make something productive at the same time. For me, knitting is one of the best ways I know to relieve stress. I find it incredibly helpful in releasing stress from my body and helping me be able to focus on work that I need to do. Okay, but also she was traveling on a train. She was traveling on a train. What kind of activism did you want her to get up to on behalf of the American people while she was traveling to and from her job of supporting all of us? And she was also making videos of encouragement for her constituents while knitting a sweater. And this is a perfect time, while I'm a little bit amped up, to talk about the history of knitting as a symbolism of resistance. I mean, I hope a textile historian comes in and gives a more comprehensive view than I'm going to here. But my first awareness that knitting was an act of resistance, that knitting was work that women did in order to push back against oppressive regimes and to work for the liberation of their people, was when I first stumbled across all of my Grandma Frankie's knitting patterns from World War II. When I learned to knit my freshman year of college, my mother gave me a box of all of my grandma's knitting stuff because my mom never really learned how to knit. But my Grandma Frankie was an avid knitter. And so my mom was like, hey, if you want to take up this craft, here's a box of all her needles and her patterns and all of her notes and some half-done projects. And in there were patterns of how to knit socks for soldiers from World War II. Knitting for the war effort was not only important here and in the UK, it was not only a symbolic gesture, it kept men's feet warm, it kept men alive, and it kept women hopeful and engaged. Not only women, there's plenty of evidence that boys and older men who were not away at war also would knit things. Okay, when I think about knitting as activism, the line from this article on knittingforclimate.com, go read the whole article, it's great, but one line from it always comes to the forefront of my mind. Throughout the ages, the innocuous clack of needles has accompanied the silent symphony of subversion and protest. The article then goes on to talk about how in World War I, women would knit coded messages as part of the Belgian resistance into their garments. It turned knitting into a craft of espionage. We can go back even farther, the American Revolution. When we have the ability to make our own yarn and then make our own clothing, we gain a measure of independence. It helps bolster confidence and defiance against tyranny. If you can rely on your own sheep, your own wool, your own yarn, your own textiles made from that yarn, then you're not dependent on the jacked up prices of foreign goods. That is a step toward liberty. By the way, I really recommend this article, Knitting as Dissent, Female Resistance in America Since the Revolutionary War. It doesn't address the more recent ways that knitting has been used as resistance in our society, because this article is more than 10 years old, but it is a great read. I don't doubt that AOC is using knitting in her recent videos because she is learning a new craft. She said it's the first sweater she's ever made. And she's modeling for us that we all have a right to still enjoy things in life. Even while we are living in this dark time, this is the one life we get, and we have a right to experience pleasure and peace and joy as resistance. And that crafts like knitting can help us de-stress and focus. But I also know that AOC is a savvy communicator, and she is clearly as aware as I am of the symbolism of knitting in a time like this. Knitting is a slow craft. It takes time, it takes attention, it is methodical, it's something that you can't finish quickly. I've been working on this sweater vest for a month off and on. It is an investment in something that you will wear and use for many years, but it definitely is an investment. It takes time, it takes skill, it takes focus. It is symbolic of the work that we need to be doing. It is a resistance built row by row with intentionality of little interconnected loops. AOC knows what she's doing. She knows what she's communicating. And there's so many layers of symbolism in any knitting that we do. And I would just encourage folks, one, see, I've calmed down a little bit. I've calmed down a little bit because knitting is soothing and it helps me recenter myself. I would just encourage folks to, one, not be so quick to judge based on a 2-minute Instagram video. And two, to think a little bit deeper about the messaging that we're receiving, both from the folks that are supposed to be on our side, but also from everybody else, everywhere else. To understand what messaging, what propaganda, what communication is happening. And maybe AOC's video is a good reminder for you that you have a right to still enjoy beautiful things. You have a right to have hobbies. You have a right to have passions and interests and to work on other things. Because this is a long haul and we all have to pace ourselves. And also, as I said earlier, this is the one life that we get. And so we have a right to live and enjoy all of the things in life that we can. We have to fill those in the gaps right now. That is the unfortunate reality that we have been given. But also, we have to have the ability to sustain the work that we're doing, and we have to recharge ourselves. And I think that reminding ourselves that we are allowed to experience hobbies, we are allowed to experience social gatherings, we are allowed to experience pleasurable things like good food, take the time to read a good novel. All of these things are proof of how engaged we are, how good we are at pacing ourselves and knowing that we are in this as long as it takes. I saw AOC knitting as proof that she knows what she's doing. She is trying to communicate to us how it is that we get through this, how it is that we bolster ourselves, how we shore ourselves up to do the necessary work. And I'm sorry that I got a little bit angry at the beginning of this video, but I know for me, knitting is such an important part of my own personal practice. And that it's not something that we should be shaming other people for engaging in. If I see somebody knitting, I'm like, yes, that person, they know how to pace themselves. They know how to find joy in these moments. I'm so glad that they're taking the time to recharge and enjoy doing something that's meaningful for them. So I want to encourage y'all to take up knitting as resistance and to see other people doing it as a visible reminder, like, hey, we're all in this together. We all, eyes on the prize. We all know what we want to get done. It is such a good, effective symbol and a good communicator. I'll leave it off here. I said in a post a while back, the back of the sweater vest that I'm knitting has bees all over it. As a beekeeper, I understand that bees are a superorganism and that a single solitary worker bee, she just does her one little sting and then she dies. But when you activate a colony of 40 to 100,000 worker bees, because they face a threat from, let's say, like a black bear, attempting to rip apart their hive, kill their brood, eat their honey and their bee bread stores, that those 40,000, 200,000 worker bees are a formidable force when they coordinate and work together as a superorganism. So not only am I knitting as resistance, I'm trying to imbue my knitted goods with even more symbolism because it gives me hope and it helps me be sustained in the fight that I think is going to take us a while. So yeah, I hope that if you don't knit now, I hope whatever hobby is good for you and meaningful for you, that you're able to engage with it. And I hope when you see somebody else knitting that you'll think about the history of our foremothers and how knitting is resistance.